my head up high. It's been a while since I first saw you. It's been a while since I could stand on my own 2 feet again. It's been a while since I could call you.
Well, it's been a while.
Yes, it has been a while, but we can hold our heads up high because we got into the playoffs. So I thought that song by Stain, a goodie from a good 10, 15 years ago, was appropriate for this moment. We were on a long hiatus because we were in rehab, and so the YouTube network had kicked us off the air for a while because we needed to take care of some personal issues, some vices, addictions, and what have you. So we're back now, though, ready for the playoff push. And this is, I think our last episode was week 6, something like that.
It's been a while.
Yeah, and here we are 7 weeks later with our season recap. We just kind of accelerated in a time warp, but time has been going by very, very fast, at least from where I stand. And we're going to put a little bit of a German Christmas twist on this episode. And the first section is we're going to kind of just have a season recap, talk about some highs and lows, and then we're going to go into our predictions for the first week of the Toilet Bowl and playoffs shortly after that.
First of all, we have to give congratulations to 3 teams that have already got some money coming their way. The best record tie between the Dream Crushers and Buddy Bear's Big Timers.
Woo!
$25 in both of your pockets, so congratulations there.
No weaknesses.
And then Craig this year ends up the season the most points, probably also the most cheers, but there's $50 there for Craig. So
yep,
good job having a good team on paper.
Yep, it's the second time in the league's history that the highest scoring team has missed out, and both of them were under hilariously bad circumstances. If you remember Greg Sousa, this is before your time, but Greg Sousa,
the Kimball Anders story.
The Kimball Anders 1-point game that he needed 1 point and got exactly 1 point to knock Matt Rusch out of the playoffs when he was the highest scoring team. This week it's a tie for it's a dry heat with Team Mediocre. He pulls off a tie to keep Craig out of the playoffs, where 1 more point would have got him in.
Yep, 1 point separating Craig from being a playoff team, and there was 1 point keeping the Reverend Rusch, the away from keyboard, asleep at the helm.
He was actually very passionate before he got married back in the day.
Well,
so, but here's the whole thing. What are the odds that in the 2 situations where the highest scoring team does miss the playoffs, in both cases by a single point on the last week of the year?
Yeah.
In both cases. That's unbelievable.
So you gotta feel for Craig a little bit. Think that the ghost of the ripping off Aaron Badeau trade is still haunting him.
Yeah, he's been cursed. And like we said at the very beginning part of the year, he's had hilariously bad luck. And I hate to rub any salt in the wound because I'm sure it's got to be painful, but it is pretty hilarious that you can have the most points in the league and lose, make the playoffs. But it was probably the most competitive year we've ever had in terms of juggernauts. Our league has really turned into a league of haves and have-nots with these keepers.
Yes.
And you're really seeing the value of having strong keepers going into the year. So,
and some teams that did not have that great of a season this year have the potential to definitely have some improvements next year. So,
yeah.
All is not lost for several of these teams.
The fortunes can change. Like the teams that were bad made some good trades at the deadline to get some keepers for next year.
But let's go down just a little list of the teams and kind of give them their highs and lows for the season. I want to start with.
Well, first of all, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
You got. Any of you have seen The Office?
I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, I love the new character that Dwight created on The Office called Belschnickel. Now, I'm not dressed like Belschnickel. Basically, he's a German version of a Santa Claus-like guy that looks sort of like a homeless guy. And instead of saying if you're naughty or nice, he says, are you impish or admirable? And basically, if you're impish, you get caned with a stick, which for our purposes is going to be the fly swatter.
You're going to break your laptop.
And for those who are admirable, you get a gift. Now, we're going to be even more giving than Belschnickel, and this is kind of like that German Christmas theme that I was alluding to. We're going to give every team a gift.
And a SWAT.
And no, a SWAT only for the impish ones.
No, they have an impish moment though.
Well, everyone does.
They can all get a SWAT.
No, but there's still a general rule, like who overall have been admirable or impish. And those who have been admirable will get a gift. Those who have been impish will get caned and then get a gift. And we'll go that way.
Okay, all right. Well, so let's first of all start out with one of the co-holders of the best record would be Dream Crushers.
Yep.
You had to give him overall an admirable season.
Yeah. He had an admirable year.
He had a decent amount of injuries, but he proved the naysayers wrong with the pickup of Morris.
Yeah,
$100 on Morris. We couldn't believe it.
He's vindicated. Actually, I would say the $100 spent on Alfred Morris is going to yield a better return than the $100 on Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
So I gotta, that's vindication. We laughed at you. We mocked you. It was $100 well spent.
So what would be a good kind of gift for somebody that appreciates overcoming, but is still going to lose in the end?
Okay, that would be Rocky. We're giving you this classic Oscar-winning movie that tells a story about a boxer who overcomes the odds only to lose when it matters most at the big game, but you get a pat on the back for trying. So, Rocky is admirable, but in the end, he doesn't win. And so I don't think you're going to win the championship, but you put up a good showing, and you proved a lot of people wrong with Alfred Morris and just in getting a tie for the best record.
But in the end, you'll have a black eye, just like Rocky.
Yeah, right here, Steve, black eye. But Adrian is, she wasn't that hot, but she's pretty hot. Not right there.
Yeah, she's like smelling as Adam's apple.
Yeah. So, anyway, but
then we got Buddy Bear's big timers, and I would have to say that overall your season was admirable. You overcame a lot of injuries. Things could have been a lot worse for your team than they ended up.
We scored. I lose Percy Harvin. I lose Darren McFadden for a long period of time. I lose DeMarco Murray for a long period of time, and Mike Wallace might as well have been hurt when Ben Roethlisberger went down. So, and then Bradshaw, McGahee, after those trades, I've never had such terrible luck with injuries, but you know what? Shane Vereen steps to the plate. Malcolm Floyd steps to the plate. Everybody we plugged in did their job, pulled their weight, and we managed to, Ahmad Bradshaw, he was fantastic. We managed to still score over 130 points in each of the last few weeks, and even though I lost to Craig that second to last week, 153 points with the B squad with 4 starters out. I gotta say, that too is deserving of a movie like Rocky, but I get Rocky 2. You know why? Because in Rocky 2, he wins. Rocky 2 shows what happens when you combine heart with talent. So that's what I'm giving. Buddy Bear's Big Timers gets the movie Rocky 2 for Christmas with an admirable season.
Definitely has given.
Now to touch on those though, the high point for Drew's team this year.
Well, you look back on Drew's team, and we kind of touched on that when we said what he was admirable for, was really picking up Morris. I mean, Morris is going to be a keeper, theoretically, for years to come. A lot of people even said he's the heart and soul of the team. Even RG3 has been saying he's the leader of the team.
And many said that Alfred Morris is probably going to be projected as a first or second round draft pick.
But when you look at the lows, though, he really should have been the best record in the league. He had losses to mediocre and Frams, and those are games you shouldn't be losing.
Yeah.
And really, if one of those doesn't end up that way, he's got a first round bye and a even share of the best record.
But you got to look at it this way: if he was really all that, you don't lose a team mediocre in Frams.
Yeah.
That was absolutely horrifically embarrassing, but you get your due desserts when you do that. Yeah. And for my team, the high was, I'd have to say week 1. There's a lot of talk between Craig and I as being the powers of the league after the preseason analysis. And, I got to say that that game, Craig had 138, I had 141. We were both among the top 3 scorers that week. It was just a barn burner, and that set the tone for the big timers and also sent the greatest show on paper kind of on its heels to start the year. And so I think that was my high point. And then the low point for me was that miserable 71-point game against It's a Dry Heat. And that cost me the scoring title. I was 14 points out of the scoring title because of that stupid 71-point game where I had a fully healthy team.
You barely cracked 72. I mean, it was almost until a late score. You were looking like...
I was actually 30, 40 points until the Cowboy game. Yeah. It was like 20-something. Oh, no, that was against Kelly. That's a different game. Never mind. I'm confusing weeks there, but But anyway, yeah, that game where it was 71 points, that was actually the week that like 2 or 3 of my guys did go down during the game. Harvin went down that week. McFadden went down that week. It was just a terrible, terrible week, and it was horrific.
And then you look at the next team down the list, and right away the first thing you can say about Dancing with Raji is that for as good of a draft as he should have been able to have,
with all those trades he made,
for all the trades and the picks that he had, his low of the season was started out right away with the draft.
Mm-hmm.
He should have had a better draft than he did. He should have been in prime position to be a league leader, and he wasn't for quite a while.
No, he actually ended up cutting 2 of his first 9 draft picks before the season even started.
But then you have to say, though, that the season ended up admirably for him because he worked out a great trade, which is really the story of the season and his high point, is pulling off the trade for Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, and now you got a Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson duo to go with Peyton Manning. You know, his wide receivers are passable. I don't think they're anything special. But those running backs and the quarterback are really strong. And so because of that trade, we got to say that he's moving up. You know, as we know, Matt is a Disney fan. And this is a touching story about an old man that goes to like some jungle and brings his house there with balloons.
He's been known to sing a good rendition of A Whole New World as well.
Yeah, Matt is a big Disney file. And so this is an appropriate movie because he's on his way up. Although the only problem is that if he runs into the Buddy Bear Big Timers, he's going to have the holes poked in those balloons and he's going to crash. But for now, I got to say, Belschnickel would deem him admirable this year.
All right, now this one, I don't know how Belschnickel would look at him. Craig?
Greatest show on paper.
He lived up to his team's name.
Yep, which implies to me the greatest show on paper. That means you're not the greatest show in reality.
Yeah.
And that definitely fits him. Really, we got to say, Impish. Oh, I knocked my N key. I got to fix my N key. There we go. Wait. Hang on. The N and the B key are... I'll fix it later. I got to quit hitting the keyboard with my swatter.
You just broke your computer.
No, I didn't break it. It's just got a...
It's broken.
No. The N and the B keys are messed up, though. But I'll put them aside for later.
Show the fans.
See, here's... The B key's stuck up. I just knocked the N key off my keyboard. I get a little too rambunctious with my Belschnickel cane.
Yeah.
But it's Impish. You know why? Because as I've liked to say many times, he got cute. You know, that this is a case where time and time again we show that when you get a man crush on somebody, it almost never turns out well.
No.
You know, Matt Ryan is definitely a solid quarterback, but he finished 9th, which is where you'd think he would finish roughly.
Yeah.
You know, he finished 9th, not worth the incredibly high esteem that Craig would put him in, and he sat Tom Brady with very favorable matchups twice because he wanted to go with his gut on Matt Ryan.
And you know what? What would really sum up somebody that had something on paper, but just didn't make the right decisions and was full of regret at the end?
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List.
Schindler's List was on paper too.
He had a list on paper, and at the end of it, he's just regretting.
He wanted to do more.
He wished he could have done more.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, he's like, "I could have done more. We should have done more." Craig, you're the fantasy football version of Schindler's List, so Belschnickel offers you this present despite your caning. You were impish for starting Matt Ryan over Tom Brady. It cost you 2 games and a playoff spot and a bye.
Perhaps you could use this as a learning tool.
Yeah, you can use it as a learning tool. Next time you have 2 quarterbacks, or one's an elite quarterback, the other one's just good, start the elite quarterback. So, you got cute. You don't want to get cute.
But, the last thing, though, he gave you a good caning towards the end of the year, and you got to give him some props for that.
Yeah.
That's probably the most dominant single-week performance any team had this year.
Yeah, 183 points with the season on the line against a division rival like myself, and he put me on... My back was against the wall there, where he had, if he would have beaten Drew and I wouldn't be able to pull off that last week, he would have taken the division still. He showed a lot of heart in that game, but he laid an egg on the game that mattered most with the 80-something point game.
Yeah.
So, but that 183, that's got to be the high point of his season. He had to be feeling good going into the last week.
And he earned the scoring title.
Yeah, he earned it. He had a lot of good scoring weeks. Doug Martin was a great pickup. Solid, strong receivers. The only problem with having 4 good receivers that are all injury-prone is that you kind of don't always know which ones to start. But overall, he had a very solid, strong year. but unfortunately it was just on paper.
Yep. Then we got Messi Madrid. For a team that we had looked at as a team with potential, he had a pretty strong team. You know, he had some highs and lows. You gotta like the way some of his draft picks turned out with Spiller.
Yeah, Spiller was a good pick.
And Brandon Marshall, who really should have somehow, you know, the big Bears fan of the league doesn't take him, but...
Yeah, that's John Rome, Hawkeye Panthers. Wouldn't you have much rather had Brandon Marshall than Eli Manning?
Huh.
Listen to the experts. See, we're the experts. I gotta say, if you go back to our preseason episode, we probably batted 850, 900 with our predictions. We said that the worst teams would be Hawkeye Panthers, Framspindam, and Team Mediocre, who was at the time Coney Island Whitefish or the Resident Evil Raccoon City Sharks, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we said that I would be the best.
No, George Bush kind of laughed there.
But I gotta say, the Messi Madrid, you shamed us because out of the 6 playoff teams that we projected, you were the only one that let us down.
No, Craig was.
Oh yeah, Craig too. That's right.
We had
Messi. Playoff team.
We had Messi as the first team out.
Oh yeah, first team out.
And he ended up being the second team out because of Craig.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I keep thinking Craig's in just because he scored so many points.
No, Messi had a winning season. He's about where we picked him. He could have been better, but the low of the season, and I think why he should be considered impish, is he just had this unwavering faith in his keepers and they laid eggs. And sometimes you got to know when to cut bait.
Yeah. Messi Madrid, Impish by Belschnickel.
And the thing is that when you're out of touch and you think that your keepers are better than they really are, reality bites.
Yep, that's your present. Reality bites. Right there. That's actually a good movie from the 90s, by the way. But reality does have to bite when you realize that, you know, Mike Vick, he's just not the Mike Vick from 2 years ago. And
you can't hinge your entire cart to an injury-plagued running back.
Yeah, and that's the low point of his year, as you said. His keeper has really laid an egg this year. McCoy with health and Vick with both health and performance.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who his third keeper was. But
that's how memorable it was.
Yeah.
Now, Frams, you know, we're going to kind of take a little bit here to point out Frams, and then we'll get into Rome's team as well. Because
we're going to start from the bottom and then go flip over to the bottom of the beta and move up.
Yeah. But so Frams, the whole point of the draft, I'm not sure if he had an out-of-body experience before the draft, and I don't know, like, Geller seems like a nice, good guy. It seems like he has generally a good sports knowledge, but for one night, he was possessed or drunk.
Yeah, both maybe. Yeah, I've never, we'll go on history as probably the worst draft that our league has ever seen. And nonetheless, he does have a few high points. You know, he really came on like gangbusters late in the year. Didn't win a lot of games, but he did finish with one more win than Polkai.
Yeah, and you got to say with his overall high, you know, he
exceeded expectations by 2 wins.
Exceeded expectations by 2 wins. Had a big upset win that knocked Craig, you know, out of the playoffs.
Yep, he is, as he would say, spoiler, risky, spoiler. So,
and he probably feels better about RG3 than we should let him feel.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some reason to feel good about RG3.
Well, I mean, you got to say that it still goes back to the point where he could have had him a round or two later and gotten some better players to stack his roster. But if you are going to swing way too early, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue. RG3, defying all expectations,
by a point,
was the highest scoring, not quarterback, player. He was the highest scoring player in all of fantasy football, outscoring Tom Brady by 1 point.
But you know, had he taken somebody you should have taken there instead of RG3, taken RG3 2 rounds later, he might have had a playoff team.
Yeah, and he had a lot of dumb points too, like where, you know, his high point would have to be the keepers he acquired and trading me for Randall Cobb. I'm really regretting trading Randall Cobb away. I wanted to get him back. I tried to get him back.
He had a lot of low points, though. Scoring 50 points when he should have started Cobb.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The week he scored 50. If you would have just started Randall Cobb instead of getting cute, if you wouldn't have gotten cute, if you would have started Randall Cobb, then Kelly would be out of the playoffs. He'd be, and Craig would be able to just say, hey, the best scoring team in the league is in the playoffs, and I'm going to wreak some havoc. But no. So for that...
Impish.
Again. Belschnickel says impish. Frams is impish.
And when he was drafting, we could all think that he started off dumb, he got dumber.
Yep, and that's this is a classic movie. I know that it's one of Jason's personal favorites, as it is one of mine.
It's awful.
Yeah, I love it. But I think it's classic. But this movie, Belschnickel grants you for this German Christmas, Dumb and Dumber, because that really was what your season was all about, high points aside.
Now if France is Dumb and Dumber, then right away we should go right into Rome's team, Polkai Panthers.
Well, first of all, Belschnickel, you're impish. It was an impish year, but you're Dumb and Dumber. for as bad as the Framspindum was this year, Polkai was worse. And so, we're going to say that his gift for the season is Dumb and Dumberer.
Is the worst record of the year.
Worst record of the year.
His first-round draft pick would have been the worst first-round draft pick ever, if not for Rams taking RG3.
Second round.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, it would have been the worst draft pick ever in a draft ever, had not Rams had taken RG3.
Yeah, actually, in retrospect, though, you got to say the Eli Manning pick is worse. Looking back,
Yeah.
It's a lot worse. Eli wasn't good this year.
But going into the draft, we could easily label it as a horrible pick.
He probably had the low point, but that wasn't the low point for him. It was the worst loss in the history of our league.
157-48 to his good buddy Matthew Drzwicki.
Yeah, 48 points. I think I'd have to look at the records. I don't know, but I think that may be the worst scoring output in history since we moved to a PPR format.
Yeah.
I know that the record was like 29, I believe, before we had PPR.
Might have.
Yeah, but 48. I don't remember any games that were that bad with points per reception. And the fact is, opponents scored 157. I don't remember a team ever winning by 109. It's possible, it may have happened, but you'd have to really jog my memory. And so that's definitely the low point.
And, he did beat Craig. He had a big upset in there that was very important to give him half of his wins on the season.
Yep.
But there's really not many high points to talk about for his team. His trades, Miles Austin at least gives him a keeper.
Yeah.
8th round pick next year. But
he's unlike Rams, which has some good keepers with Randall Cobb, Andrew Luck, and maybe you can go Justin Blackman, Kyle Rudolph, whatever. He's got a lot of options there. Polkai really doesn't have much. He traded away Aaron Hernandez. Why? Why would you trade away Aaron Hernandez, one of your most bona fide keepers that you have?
Yeah.
And so you're starting off next year kind of from the bottom again. Miles Austin's a good keeper, but not much else there.
Yeah. So the high, really just a brief one. I know you remember that. I think he was the only team in the Beta Division to win that week, and he was pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
But that was about it for the high.
Yeah.
Now, going to probably the next team that definitely was better than Frams and Polkai this year, but still struggled quite a bit, is mediocre. And the end of the year had to leave mediocre, feeling like he could have been better when he ends the year with 2 straight 140-point games.
Yeah, he's finally started to put it together a little bit after he unloaded some good players in trades like Adrian Peterson. That was pretty shocking.
Yeah. And you've got to say, going into next year, he's got keepers. The first time I think that Smithson will go into the next season with good keepers, and I think he sets himself up to improve a lot. Having Torrey Smith, Shorts, and Myers. And the thing is that you didn't have to spend a waiver buck on any of them. Yeah. Torrey Smith, you gave up Adrian Peterson. Myers and Shorts were 0 waiver dollars. Yeah. So you got good value out of that. Now, the jury's going to be out. Is Brandon Myers going to be able to replicate what he did late this year? Who knows? And Cecil Shorts, he looks like a keeper. I got to say that Shorts, has a lot of potential, but if they go back to Blaine Gabbert, then all bets are off. Yeah. And so he's got a lot. The highs for him are the future. The low is the reality of the season. 7 games of 100 points or less. That's more than Frams. That's more than Polkai Panthers. He had more stinkers than any team in the league, with over half of his games coming in at under 100 points. That's just bad in the PPR format that uses a flex. Yeah. So I think that the overall Belschnickel's verdict would say impish. It's an impish year. And you have to think that whenever he looked at the scoreboard, he was looking at all the other teams with envy. He's got to think, why does my team stink so bad? How come everybody else gets the good football players? Hey, Daddy, can I have some good football players too? Daddy?
Can I have some good players? No. You must have crappy players. I'm envious of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Now on to the next one. We have Picket Fence Cartel, who got the smackdown
On him.
on him this year.
We said he was going to be roughly 5-8. I think that's what we said, isn't it?
That's somewhere around there.
I think we said we're going to be.
A couple games out of the picture, but not a shocker if he had pulled it off. And that's about what his team lived up to be. You know, you got to start with the low point for him. When we interviewed him earlier in the year, you know, he ended up being about 5-3.
He was rolling pretty good.
Rolling pretty good. We were pretty optimistic for his team, thinking there's a good chance that it was going to be Owen, myself, and him as 3-3 for playoff teams, and all of a sudden loses the last 5 games of the season.
Yeah, to be 5-3, and not only miss the playoffs,
but not even be close to a playoff spot.
To be 3 games out of a playoff spot.
Yeah.
He was 3 games out of a playoff spot.
2.5.
That's what I'm saying, 3, because you can't have a half game really, you know. So he was 3 games behind a playoff spot with a 5-3 record. So you only got 5 weeks left, and you're going to finish 3 games out of the playoffs.
But it's kind of karma for last year. Mm-hmm. His team didn't belong being in the playoffs last year. He won second place on a short run of Tebow Magic.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors.
And this year was back to reality for him. But you know what? The high point is he did acquire some keepers. I think that his team and Mediocre actually both go in with a lot of good keepers.
Yeah, he's got strong keepers for next year. You got to say with Cam Newton, Demarius Thomas, what was his other one?
LaShore.
Yeah, there's a lot of good keepers on his team. He's got more than that even.
Andy Dalton even potentially. Yeah. You know, he's got a lot of pieces there. I mean, he can even chip off a piece or two because he's going to have guys that he wouldn't even keep that are better than keepers for other teams.
Instead of him giving away draft picks for players all the time, he'll be able to actually gain some draft picks from the players he has. Yeah, that's a new spot for him. He's definitely in a position to avoid the disastrous drafts he's had of a few recent years.
But some of the moves he made at the end of the year got some other owners angry, and they were kind of thinking that Nick would have been better off dead.
Overall, Belschnickel was impish. It was an impish year. You know why? Because you gave your whole team away to playoff contenders, hurting those that were in the race, and giving Eric Chris Johnson and Frank Gore, and giving
and Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, Jordy Nelson.
Although he got hurt.
Yep. So. Giving Owen Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and I think he got someone else too, didn't he?
And quarterback. Owen got the Buccaneers quarterback.
Oh yeah, Josh Freeman, who's having an excellent year.
However, he probably would have rather had Cam Newton the last couple
last few weeks, but Newton turned it on right after you traded him.
Yeah.
But a lot of the owners would probably say, not literally, nobody's morbid here, nobody's violent. This is just metaphorical language. Nobody's actually wishing that Nick would be dead physically.
Nick likes Cusack.
Yeah, but I think that they would say you're better off dead because you cost me a playoff spot, you scoundrel.
Well, that brings us to my team here. Now, what are your thoughts overall on Frank Chu's 12 Galaxies?
I'd say that, we gotta go, we're still got Kelly. Kelly's underneath you.
That's right, yeah.
So,
we got Kelly.
Jump with the gun.
Hang on.
Jump with the gun.
All right. So for Kelly's team, first of all, we have to say he exceeded expectations more than anybody else this year. This was the outperformed expectations team. You have to give him some credit for that. The high point of the season had to be his miraculous holding on to a tie.
145 points to tie.
His best game of the year by far.
Yep.
Only resulted in a tie, but it was the tie he needed.
Yep. And for that, Belschnickel will say he had an admirable season. He dealt with injuries to Reggie Bush and some others early on.
He had moments where he was, out of his 3 good running backs, he was always not taking the best one of the week, several weeks in a row. Yep.
He had a lot of bad luck and misfortune, but he squeezed into the big dance. I'm actually hoping he beats Dream Crush this week, because no offense, but I think that you have the most favorable matchup for me, even though I did only score 70-something points against you last time. But yeah, I'm hoping that he wins that first playoff game, because that will make my second round game that much more feasible. However, his low was when he had 3 straight games under 87, and the only game he wins was the one he scored 75. And that was when Gelhard didn't start Cobb and only managed 50 points.
Yes.
And so that was his low point of his season, a 3-game stretch with 87 points or less every week.
But, had he not beat Gelhar in that game, he would have probably been a selling team, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And so the high definitely has to outweigh the low.
Yeah, because he got in the playoffs. And overall, it's admirable, and I think that Belschnickel's gift to him this year would be, with respect to Craig's Greatest Show on Paper and Messi Madrid, would be the Grinch who stole Christmas.
Because he was the Grinch that stole the last playoff spot.
Yep, he ruined Craig and Greg's Christmas.
Despite significantly underscoring their teams overall for the year.
You know, I'm just assuming, like, Craig didn't actually say this to me, but I try to read between the lines, and I'm pretty sure what he was trying to tell me when I was on the phone with him last is that he's not going to even buy his children Christmas presents.
Yeah.
He's not even going to buy them Christmas presents. He's not going to buy Stephanie, his wife, a present. He's just going to drink some very highly alcoholic eggnog and drown his sorrows.
Well,
because Kelly stole his Christmas.
When we interviewed Craig for this, he said, I could have gone to Vegas with that money.
He stole his Christmas. Kelly stole his Christmas. Okay, let's move on.
Speaking of eggnog. Wow.
All right.
That was disturbing.
I'm just showing my acting chops.
Well, all right, now to the one that I have jumped the gun a little bit here. Frank Choose 12 Galaxies. What are your thoughts overall on my team this year?
I'd say that the fact that you got in the playoffs, normally Belschnickel would say that was admirable, but the tactics you used to get there, Impish. That's Belschnickel.
Oh, that's rage in that one.
Caning. It's like when he caned Jim, when Belschnickel caned Jim when he was leaving his Christmas party on The Office.
Okay.
I'm just doing that. I just wish we had a real stick, not this stupid slaughter.
Last time you tried to hit me, a frying pan deflected it.
Yeah, you blocked it. So
you ended up being the one that was hurt.
Yeah, because who could punch a frying pan and not get hurt? So anyway, I think that we'll go into the highs and lows shortly, but I think that Belschnickel's prize for you and people like Craig Imeson and Greg Sousa might heartily agree, including Gelhard even, he was pretty vocal about it all, that you're going to get dirty work. You get A.J. Green, Chris Johnson, and Frank Gore for the playoff push.
And Jordy.
And Jordy Nelson. 4 starters. High-end starters. Well, I wouldn't say Jordy right now, the way he's playing, and he's hurt, but still, we didn't know that. And for the price of Michaela Shore, who's a good keeper, and then
Miles Austin was a good
Miles Austin, but I mean, come on. We made it. There is justification, there's rationale for it, and we all covered that already. And I was a defendant of the whole right to run your team as you see fit, but it's still, you know what? Cut blocks are not illegal. You know, zone blocking teams have to use the cut block. I think that these trades were the cut block of fantasy football, and thus you get the movie Dirty Work.
Well, and I was interviewed earlier this week, and you had asked, I think you said, have you ever seen so many bad trades in all your life? You said, I've never seen so many bad trades in all my life. And I said, Lord knows I have.
Yeah. I make good trades, but mine are equitable.
Now, for Owen Goal.
Oh, no, we didn't talk about your high point and low point.
Oh, yeah.
Your high point was those trades, getting A.J. Green, Frank Gore, and Sonic, and putting on a late push to get in the year. But the low point was you ran into the gauntlet, the Alpha Division gauntlet, and you came out looking like a tool. You lost 3 out of 4 games to the powers that be.
And 3 out of those 4 games was like 158, 159, 170 something.
I mean, you had how many games did you have opponents scoring 150 or more against you?
155 or more in 4 games.
Yeah, and 2 of them were 170.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had some of the most daunting competition. You ran into a 4-game stretch where you played me, Greg, Craig, and Matt, all the 4 powers of the Alpha Division, and
only won one.
Only won one of them, and so that was a low point of your season, losing 3 of 4. You were getting put in the furnace of testing, and you did not pass the test. So what do? You resort to the.
Well, you know what? Though, to be fair, at this point, after I lost that 3rd game there, You guys had to talk me down from selling off my team.
Yeah, you were close selling, but then you go all in and decide to say, keepers be darned, we're gonna go for this year. Like that'd be like the this year. Who's the team that's kind of on the cusp of the playoffs right now? The Seahawks. It'd be like the Seattle Seahawks saying, we're trading the whole team to win now.
That's like the Brewers did a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but that's because they actually had a legitimate window, because the NL was weak.
Yeah.
You're doing it in a year where the competition is the strongest it's probably ever been.
But I'm looking at a chance for history.
Yeah,
it is a chance for history.
It's going for the three-peat. It's the first time that would have been done since the very wee years of the league when yours truly did it. I think it was in years 3, 4, and 5, if I recall.
So it's definitely a chance for...
It hasn't been done in 10 years, because I think it was... I'm pretty sure it was season 3, 4, and 5, or 4, 5, and 6, something like that.
And if I escaped the first week, you'd have to say this would qualify as a dynasty team.
Yeah. 2
championships and a second round of the playoffs. Would definitely make it there. So, I still have some keepers with Sproles, and then kind of have to forage around for some other guys there, but...
The worst trade I did to get my three-peat was trading Torrey Smith for Jeff Garcia.
Torrey Smith?
Or no, Torrey Holt.
Torrey
Holt.
Oh, yeah.
Torrey Holt for Jeff Garcia. But, anyway.
All right, so the last one is...
The nephew, Owen Goal. Kind of the most quiet 8-5 team I think we've ever seen, and the quietest bye-winning team we've ever seen.
Well, you know what, though? He lost, 4 out of his last 5 games to almost...
That's amazing.
Almost missed the playoffs, too.
And that's his low point, having the injuries and, to lose 4 out of 5 games and still pull out a bye shows how good you were before. I mean, he had Rob Gronkowski, and he had Jones-Drew, and Cam Newton, who wasn't really performing that well, Marshawn Lynch, Vincent Jackson, Dwayne Bowe. He had a very strong team. And really, amazingly, is that the high of the season, the Bears' D is what carried him.
Yeah.
Through those injuries, the Bears' D was scoring like a high-end wide receiver.
Instead of having the Bears' D, had he had the second or third best defense, he wouldn't even be a playoff.
Yeah, and the funny thing is actually, though, when the Bears' D started to come back down to earth a little bit, dropping their points per game average from 17 to 13, that's when he started losing.
And right now, you have to admit, his team is trending down.
Yeah.
He squeaked into the playoffs. He squeaked out a bye by 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually feel like right now his team is the weakest of the 6 playoff teams.
Yeah, he needed that bye. And he needed that bye.
Because that bye will guarantee he can play for money.
But overall, I'd say the lows of the season were obviously the injuries and the fact that he didn't even use the waiver wire.
He should have tried to fix the problem with money right away.
Yeah, he's historically been the worst with the waiver wire. He doesn't understand that kickers don't cost $10 and that good players cost $50 or $60.
Because he might have been able to win that one more game and cut that best record.
If you got a really good player there, I mean, it's inexcusable to have over $100 in waiver bucks sitting in your account at the end of the year.
Just looking at it right now, he should have put all of his money on Bryce Brown.
Yeah, that would have been a big move. And
right there, boom.
Dominant. If you got Bryce Brown.
He wins one more game, he scores a bunch more points, and we're talking about him as a team to beat in the playoffs because Bryce Brown's still going to be good the rest of this year.
Yeah, now, in fairness to him, he usually doesn't get home till 8 or 9 at night because he's in middle school and he's a basketball player, so he's always got practice and games. So, he doesn't have a lot of time, but even so, that waiver, you can't take it with you. You don't carry waiver bucks into the next year. So for him to leave over $100 on the table when he has such serious injury deficiencies, overall that hurt him bad. And so even though Belschnickel has got to give him an admirable recommendation because of
he can't be impish
because you got to buy.
And he built a strong enough team to start
to absorb
it. And he made the trade for Green Ellis at the end.
Yep.
But he had so much money. He was like a millionaire in fantasy bucks worthwhile.
Yep. And you're the youngest player, so you're the $1 million baby, which is an Oscar-winning picture. It's Oscar-winning. But
Hilary Swank.
Yeah, well, Clint Eastwood is the one that I think got the Oscars though, because of director and stuff. But anyway, you're the $1 million baby in that you're the only one that's not a legal adult, and you got like $1 million in waiver bucks sitting there just going to waste. It's a waste.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of wraps up our season recap. To just briefly summarize again. We called 5 of the 6 playoff teams correct.
We were a tie away from calling all 6 correct.
All 6 correct. And we called the bottom 3 teams correctly.
And we did call the top team correctly.
Yep, and I said that Owen was going to win the bye. You said yourself. Remember, I predicted Owen to win the division?
And it was painfully close.
Yep, and it was separated by what, 8 points?
8 points.
8 points separated Owen Goal and Frank Choose, but I said Owen Goal's going to win the division, so I predicted both the buys. I wish that Vegas would take Pigskin League bets because I would be rolling in it right now. So anyway, the preview there's only a few games obviously, so it'll go really fast. It'll be like a 5-6 minute show. This one is 40, but it's worth it. It's the season recap. Remember we said we're gonna have a special big issue at the end of the year anyway, a big episode.
Mm-hmm.
So this qualifies for that. But from Belschnickel, I'll see you for now. And hey, Belschnickel, ow! We'll see you in a couple minutes.